All right, thank you everyone for your patience. It's hard to plan how much time we're going to need for executive session sometimes. Moving on to our public session, we are moving to the nomination and appointment of a new board member. Can I get a motion to open nominations for the vacant board member position?
Motion, Randy.
Second, Camille. And do we have a nomination?
Nominate David Nader.
And so now we're going to do a roll call. So if we get a yes, no, or abstain.
I would keep going if there's any.
Oh, are there any other nominations?
Yes, I would like to nominate Eric Zerling.
And are there any other nominations? Not hearing any. So we're going to run through the votes for David Nader first. You vote yes, no, or abstain. And then we'll go through the votes for Eric Zerling. And again, it's yes, no, or abstain. And you can only vote for one member. So the nomination for David Nader, can I get a roll call, please?
Mrs. Betterman,
No.
Mrs. Fiore,
No.
Mr. Peach,
Yes.
Mrs. Bogorski,
No.
Mr. Wallace,
No.
Mrs. Wolf,
Yeah.
Dr. Cerciolo,
No.
Mrs. Sample.
No. Moving on to the nomination for Eric Zerling. Can I get a roll call, please?
Mrs. Betterman,
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore,
Yes.
Mr. Peach,
No.
Mrs. Bogorski,
Yes.
Mr. Wallace,
Yes.
Mrs. Wolf,
No.
Dr. Cerciolo,
Yes.
Mrs. Sample.
Yes. So at the February, congratulations to Eric Zerling. And the board secretary will administer the oath of office on February 8th, 2022 at our next board meeting. Thank you. Thank you to everyone. Thank you to everyone that came out to interview, and we encourage you to run for election to the board in November. If you're interested in the process, you can reach out to Jason Bohm. The process starts in June, July. All right, moving on. Do we have a superintendent's report?
We do. We have a lengthy superintendent's report, Mrs. Sample. Thank you, everyone, for coming. We have several recognitions tonight and a school highlight for our board agenda. I'd like to begin tonight by having our Hollenbrook School Principal, Mr. Nigro, and his staff present us with the Hollenbrook School highlight. So, Mr. Nigro, I know I saw you walk in. He's hiding over there. Okay. Mr. Nigro, I'll turn it over to you to get us started tonight.
You want the slide, teacher?
You're good.
Good evening. My name is Colleen DiGregorio. I'm a fifth grade teacher at Hollenbrook School. I'm here with Paul Nigro, Joyce McGibbon, and Trish Noonan, and we're going to be talking to you about our Discover Lab today. As we were presenting, we want to remind you of our district mission statement and our inquisitive learning goal on the screen. You will find that our Discover Lab strongly supports these, and Mr. Niagara will now explain how our Discover Lab has evolved over the last few years.
Thank you. Okay, so Boy, that's really small from here. So in the school year of 2016, I was told that we needed to create a makerspace space for our school. So being a good red-blooded American, not knowing at all what makerspace was, I ran to Google and I Googled it. And what Google told me, and I'm going to have to cheat because I have to read this. Makerspace is a collaborative workspace for making learning, exploring, and sharing that uses high to no tech. That meant nothing to me. I continued reading. Hands-on learning, critical thinking are stressed. Okay, now we're starting to get into my ballpark. I do know what critical thinking is. I do know what hands-on learning is. But then it gave me a quote and said, it is the process, not the product. And that meant a lot to me. Sometimes we focus so much on the end result, we forget that the learning takes place getting to the end result. And that spoke a lot to me. So, let's see. Now that I knew the definition, I needed to know more. I attended the Texpo Technology Conference in 2017, and I focused on the many workshops they offered about makerspace. At one of these workshops that was run by the Somerville Public Schools, which I knew were 2 towns over from here, I met with the teachers afterwards, and I said, is there any chance we could come to your school and see what you just presented so I could learn more about this? They were happy to do that. So I and 2 teachers went over and spent an hour with them, and they gave us their time and explained the whole program, which was terrific and really helped me out. Texpo 2017 provided me with information and now direction on how to make a makerspace. And at this point, I created a team, and I told them, I want you to start doing a lot of research on makerspace and see how we can bring this to our school. And I want a really strong program. 2 of the teachers identified were Miss April Birkin and Miss Linda Kovacs. The name at the time I decided to change to Discover Lab. I didn't want this to be limited in what we could do as a class. In my research, I was worried that this would become an afterthought, an initiative that we started but then would soon be forgotten. I saw real potential here, and I wanted it to succeed and evolve. That is why it became part of our schedule. That is why now 3 teachers would be responsible for building this program. I wanted the Discover Lab to have a future. And at this point, I'm going to introduce Dr. Joyce McGibbon, who will tell you, as the leader of this program, how it has evolved from when she first started.
So I was fortunate enough to join Discover Lab during that first year. As a teacher with previous experience starting a makerspace and running makerspace, I was really excited to join the Holland Group program because Paul's vision took all the positives of makerspace, but really was aiming to take it to the next level, and that really excited me. Paul gave us the opportunity, the space to explore different ideas, different options, and to figure out what the children liked, what would work, and most importantly, what the children needed to learn in order to be successful. And through this development, we developed curriculum, an outline that we still use today, where basically the first week of the month we do technology or digital citizenship. Weeks 2 and 3, we do collaborative hands-on learning challenges, and week 4 is free choice. Discover Labs continue to evolve. This year, the change was a move from a 30-minute class to a 1-hour class. This has been a phenomenal change. The additional time has allowed us to do more in-depth lessons. It gives the children time to really work together, collaborate, brainstorm, plan how they're going to solve the challenges. And it means there's built-in time at the end for reflection. They can think about what worked, what didn't work, and what they would do differently next time. This adds so much more value to the program than we had before. We also this year added the classroom teachers as co-teachers, which has been a huge benefit all around, and Mrs. Noonan is going to explain more about that in a little while. Next slide. So whatever we're doing in Discover Lab, it's all run around the main key objectives, which is communication, collaboration, critical thinking, creativity, and perseverance. These skills are important in so many aspects of our students' lives, both now and in the future. And Discover Lab gives us the perfect opportunity to teach and practice those skills. So exactly how do you teach these skills to 9 and 10-year-olds? Let's take a look. So this was one of our first challenges this year. The goal of this lesson from the student perspective was to roll a ball from one side of a sheet to the other while avoiding the holes. We're all familiar with the game, is it Labyrinth? Labyrinth, where the wooden get. Basically, this is a version with a sheet with holes in it. The students are socially distanced, and they had to work together to figure out how to get the ball from one side to the other. So from a teacher's perspective, the goal of the lesson was to discover the importance of communication and compromise in teamwork. This is not me teaching them, this is them discovering for themselves and then modeling appropriate interactions, and the fact that good communication is speaking as well as listening. That was a revelation. Okay, another lesson, they had to design a parachute to get Humpty safely to the ground. That was the goal as far as the students were concerned. From a teacher perspective, we were reinforcing the communication and compromise aspect, but the children also had to discover the importance of critical thinking and problem solving, and how they had to analyze their designs and tweak them as they went to make sure that they did the job that they were built to do. Then we had our runaway turkey that happened around Thanksgiving. Again, from the student perspective, they had to create a trap to safely capture the escaped turkey. From a teacher perspective, again, we're reinforcing all of those other skills, but they had to discover the importance of creativity and thinking outside the box in problem solving. The kids all were given the same materials, the same challenge to solve. They all came up with completely different solutions. It's quite amazing to see. And then we had the Thanksgiving table challenge, which the kids absolutely loved. Again, from their perspective, they had to build a table using only 6 pieces of paper and 12 inches of tape, and that had to hold at least 2 cans of food. From my perspective, again, reinforcing all those other skills, but they also had to discover the importance of testing their design and modifying it. And you can see, there was so many different solutions. They actually got quite competitive. They only had to stack 2 cans, but you can see we wiped the stack going on. We had our own little Thanksgiving feast. So we build from week to week on all these different lessons, and at this point, they have learned a lot and their skills have really grown. Now we're going to pass you over to Mrs. Miller.
This is one of my favorite challenges. Being part of the Discover Lab is a real benefit for teachers, and it not only helps us facilitate the learning, but it helps us also participate in the inquiry process alongside the children. You'll notice the picture on the left there. Me and Ms. Sloan collaborated together to take this challenge, and we were successful too. You'll see my Thanksgiving meal is up on that table. And what was neat was we were able to share with the children what struggles we had as their teachers, and they were able to share what worked for them as well. So not only are we helping the children in this class facilitate their learning, but we're doing it alongside of them. It's really a whole lot of fun. You can put that slide. So how does this look like in the classroom? We're working together and working alongside Dr. McGibbon has been an honor, and we've learned a whole lot throughout this process as the classroom teacher. It's helped us with that lessons in the classroom. It's allowed for inquiry-based learning to be embedded across the curriculum, not just in the Discover Lab. We put it into the classroom as well. It helps us create more opportunities to assist the students in collaborative learning. It provides further understanding of the students' needs to help them facilitate their learning. We see the children in a different setting. We see them doing different things. It's not just the math and the science and reading and the writing. They're being exposed to different types of thinking, different types of challenges, and it's really neat to be part of that. So Discover provides opportunities for students to really think differently, to approach tasks in new ways. And I've seen students who may struggle academically really enjoy the chance to shine through and really have great success. Whereas they might not be the best in one subject area, but in Discover, we have seen students just really shine through, and just to find that success within them is wonderful. So it helps them both socially, emotionally, and academic across the board. So we take it into the classroom. You can go to the next slide, please. So taking what we are learning in Discover Lab as the classroom teacher into the classroom. We're teaching the children critical thinking skills. They are definitely finding different ways to approach problems and come up with different solutions. You'll see here an example of a science experiment that I've done with my students for years. And this science experiment, you'll see a battery, a wire, and a bulb. The challenge here was to find ways to light a bulb. So the children are using their background knowledge of what they know about electricity. We don't give them a lot of guidance. And they try to challenge themselves to light the bulb. Years ago, children would instantly just get frustrated, struggle, I can't do this, and give up. Through learning these inquiry skills, through learning different ways to critically think and realizing that it's okay to not succeed the first time, it's okay to fail and keep trying. I have seen, this is something that I've done recently with my children, and whereas I've seen children get upset and frustrated and sometimes even cry, seeing their growth over the years by teaching them these inquiry-based skills, they are having this more of a growth mindset. I can do it. I may not have been able to do it at that point. I can't do it yet, but they keep on trying and they're persevering and they're going through this process of trying and not giving up, and that is really impressive. Go to the next slide. So personally, as a teacher, I really have seen my children change in a positive way, ways where my students have been able to problem solve, approach new challenges. And this is a direct result of the inquiry learning that we are doing in the Discover Lab. And I'm really grateful to witness this firsthand, watching my students go through this process and being their guide throughout the day, not just in Discover, but we see it throughout the curriculum areas. So we polled the children and we asked them to reflect. What do they think about Discover Lab? Are they getting out of it what we see and what we think that they're getting out of it? And over 70% of fourth graders share that they understand that it's okay to fail and that they can try new strategies and solutions to achieve success. As you see here, you'll see some statements from, these are directly quoted from the children. I'm just going to point out a few. One student says, I love that it challenges my thinking. Another student says, you can think of other solutions. It's like engineering for kids. And it doesn't matter if you fail because that's okay. And that's what we teach them. It's okay to fail. Just don't give up. Just keep on trying different ways. And another one that I wanted to highlight was Discover Lab is about challenges that you think are impossible. But within that hour, you have achieved it or you've tried your best to do so. So I'm grateful to have the opportunity to be part of the Discover Lab as I encourage students to think critically throughout our inquisitive-based learning, throughout lessons and the activities that we give them. These students are really learning to navigate through the process of applying and showing their understanding without giving up. And it's really a rewarding thing to see this transfer into the classroom.
So in conclusion, our Discover Lab has been a huge success. I've observed hands-on learning, students analyzing a problem and working towards a solution. I've seen students who don't necessarily test very well, but have met with tremendous success in this class. The teachers have noticed this also. The evolution of our Discover Lab is ongoing. It aligns with our district goal of inquisitive learning. Having our homeroom teachers be a part of this was a natural evolution of the class. It is my hope that the way the lessons are taught in the class will be taught in our academic classes. I think we're reaching that goal. So thank you all very much for your attention and the opportunity to share this with you. And if there are any questions you have, I think the next slide said any questions, so let's just pretend that's up there. There we go. Any questions from you or any of the teachers who are in there doing this?
I think it's excellent work, and, I can just imagine that the students are having so much fun, and the learning that's happening while they're going through the process is just, those are the things that they're gonna remember, and I love the mantra of, getting it wrong is still okay. You're still learning when you're learning what doesn't work.
And that goes way back to when I first looked at it. It's the process, not the product. And that's
Right.
really the mantra that we've kept throughout all of this. And I liked what the slide, I think Trish came up with these slides where it was, no, I'm sorry, this was Joyce, where you said it's the teacher perspective versus the student perspective. It's almost like we're sneakily teaching them how to problem solve. And get their credit, so that's really good. So thank you all, you guys are awesome. Anything else? Okay, thank you, folks.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr. Ryan.
you.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you so
McGinn.
much.
Thank you, Mrs. Moon. Thank you. We have other recognitions that I want to bring to the board's attention tonight. So moving next on my superintendent's report. The next recognition is recognition of our RMS staff and the Polytech partnership. I'd like to take the time tonight to recognize the extraordinary efforts of the staff at Reddington Middle School and the staff and students at Hunterdon County Polytech for something that we've appropriately titled the Christmas Miracle. On December 23rd, I received an email from Ann Rorty, a child study team member at RMS, and the email started with this line: Dr. Hart, I'm writing you this email to make sure you're aware of the amazing people that you have working here at RMS. Of course, this gathered my attention. And I have to say, as I continued reading Mrs. Rorty's email, what occurred in the hallways of RMS in late December of 2021 is nothing short of miraculous. To give you more details, we've invited Mrs. Rorty and Mrs. Goodfellow to talk to the board tonight about the incident or the events that happened at RMS. So Mrs. Goodfellow and Mrs. Rorty, feel free to come on up.
Everyone. Hello. Thank you for having us. We're excited to be here and talk to you about everything that the 7th grade team and all the teachers at RMS work together to do for one of our families. And we did feel that it was definitely a miracle. Since the beginning of September, one of our 7th grade students has been struggling academically and emotionally, and the family was experiencing significant financial strain. Mrs. Goodfellow and myself worked together to identify the different avenues of support that was so desperately needed. As part of school protocol, the 7th grade team meets 3 times a week to discuss students during CPT. And if you don't know what that means, it's common planning time. And CPT provides a platform for grade level teachers, school counselors, child study team members to discuss student concerns, develop strategies to support students, as well as to celebrate their many successes. The entire team was aware of how much the student and family were in need. This awareness was at times unspoken, but always at the forefront of our minds and heavy in our hearts. The mom, despite many obstacles, has always made her children a priority. Her child, one of our 7th grade students, was in serious crisis. Mom had no other choice but to take a leave from work to care for her child at home. As a result, Mom lost her only source of income. The challenges continued, the family car broke down, and there was no financial means to repair it. This only served to complicate things after the student returned to school, yet needed to leave at noon to attend virtual counseling from home. The only option left for Mom was to Uber her child home from school 3 afternoons a week in order to be on time for counseling. The critical turning point for all of us came when we learned that the mother was no longer able to afford an Uber, and therefore her child would not be able to perform in the choral concert in the evening. We had to help. Under the direction of Mrs. Moffett, a school-wide fundraiser, our faculty Jeans Day was underway the very next day. Enough funds were collected and Mom and student were able to attend the choral concert, a much beloved school program the student was proud of. At a 7th grade CPT on Monday, December 20th, the team knew the only real way to help was to get the family car fixed. The conversation was focused on finding a way. The question arose, does anyone know a good mechanic? Heads moved side to side in silence, and out of the quiet moment, the teacher said, how about Hunterdon County Polytech? All of us looked up, and the 7th grade team said, wait, that's fantastic, that's wonderful, oh my gosh, yes, what a great idea. So Ellen offered to call Jen, you say her name, because I don't want to mess it up. Yeah.
And I just looked up, Jen, can you just wave for all of us, please?
She's right there in the middle.
I'm just gonna interject something. I just want to say, Jen, that I will forever remember that initial phone call to you. What you don't know is before that phone call, I really didn't know Jen personally. I had met her years ago as working as part of the Traumatic Loss Coalition in response to a loss at Hunterdon County Polytech. But what I always remembered from that short time with her was her warmth, her compassion, her brilliance, and her ability to lead in a difficult time. And when that staff member said, what about Hunterdon County Polytech? Does anybody know anyone? I said, I can call Jen. And that phone call, my friend, because you are now my friend forever, I still get choked up. Jen then said, if she can get the car here, we will take a look at it. Mom still thankfully had AAA, was able to get the car there. And the rest is just absolutely indescribable of what happened. But what I want to say was, it's like the only way I can describe it, this phone call and this connection between Bridgington Middle School and Hunterdon County Polytech is like when you take the two ends of the cords and you plug them in. And Jen, I'm going to read this because I wrote it and I dedicate it to you, to the automotive teacher, to the students. I cannot thank you enough for what you did. With that connection between the two schools, that partnership, that energy begins to flow from one end to the other and back again. The light of possibilities of what could actually happen begins to shine, and that darkness that we were holding on to faded. Each side re-energized constantly by one another. Progress updates were made, phone calls were shared, the excitement was palpable, you could feel it. Many tears of gratitude were shared. I have to tell you that when the car was looked at, Jen called me and she said, Ellen, is a reason why this car was not working because it was not safe to drive. And her team in the automotive department and went over everything. And without a hesitation, Jen Calvelli offered to pay for $150 of the expenses to fix the car out of her own pocket for a total stranger. She said, I still get emotional. She said, but she does need 2 front tires. They're down to the metal. There were no brakes, and she had that car fixed. All this time, going back and forth and working with Jen, it just kept growing and growing and growing. Jen, you went into your team, and I don't know if you want to finish reading, and just, I don't know if Jen can talk at all, but she went into her group of students and said, we simply need a miracle, and we need it in 2 days. And they took the car in, went over it. I would be in contact. Jen also was in contact with Mom. The day that we were going to pick it up, I called Jen, and I said, hello, and she said, she's purring like a kitten. I can't even begin to tell you the connection and what it meant and what you have led with your team. And but I know that I speak for everyone when I say this, is that this experience and how it all unfurled, we were able to take the car. By the time we got the car, we had collected some money, gift cards, just stuff. We just filled the car with everything we had. But when we delivered the car, I think what was most profound was when Jen told his mom that she was no longer alone, and that Hunterdon County Polytech will work with her for regular scheduled maintenance oil changes, and whatever else is needed. And this is just the connection and that energize. So I know, Jen, I speak for everyone. We want to thank you, your team, to the teacher, to you, for everything you did, for your kindness. This is one of those rare moments in life that you read about and always dream about being part of. It was a priceless gift to know those who were involved, each one of us quietly knowing that we received far more than we gave. This has been a gift that keeps going because shortly after the winter break, I was in the store, some store, and I heard Jen's voice. It was like, I never see this woman. And there she was, and she was with her mother. So I had the opportunity to shake her mom's hand and tell her about her daughter. And that's what we do here at Reddington. That's what Huntington County Polytech. And I just close, you know, there were Christmas dinners, Anne spearheaded a Christmas dinner, and paid for a majority of it because everybody was just giving and giving. You know, I drove her over, it was just who could do what, and it's so
It just
hard.
didn't stop. It just, we wrapped presents and one of the other teachers is this amazing Walmart shopper and took money and just got presents and wrapped and you know, another teacher did this and another teacher did that. And, you know, it just, the 7th grade team just did everything they could to make sure that this family was taken care of. And, you know, we wanted all of them to come and they were just like, we didn't do it to be recognized, we did it because we care. And we just wanted you to know, I just really wanted you to know about it because when I left, after the car was brought to the school and nobody could sit in the car because it was filled with cakes and gifts for the family. And I just started crying and I was so moved. And that's when I sat down and wrote the email to you. And I was just so honored to be a part of this group of people that I wanted to make sure that you were aware of it.
And then I got that email, I was CC'd on it, and then Christmas Eve after I delivered the meal to the family, I pulled into my driveway and I said, you know, it's the quiet, humble one that doesn't give herself any credit. And I also then bombarded Dr. Hart with another email just praising, because you know, it's the little things that really matter. It's the relationships we build, it's the connections. And in all of the unexpected challenges that we've experienced over the past 2 years, the unknowns, the difficulties, this unexpected gift of an opportunity served to shine light on the fact that there are many good people in this world, and that when we stand together and across school districts, we can move mountains. Dr. Hart, School Board, we thank you on behalf of my esteemed colleague Ann Rorty and myself, we thank you for this time tonight to share our beautiful story. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And Mrs. Rory, Mrs. Goodfellow are correct. I was bombarded with enough emails and pictures about this situation that I wanted to bring it to the attention of the board. But this Christmas miracle really is a testament to the community that's been built here in Reddington and speaks to the power of partnership. I'm grateful for and appreciative of the staff, of our staff, but I also want to recognize Dr. Bonsall. He's the superintendent at Polytech. He's there with Mrs. Calvelli. And I'm hopeful, you know, that they're listening to all of this tonight, because their collective efforts and our collective efforts really made a difference in the life of the child. So we appreciate everything that you've done, and I thought it to be important that you be recognized by the board. And I have something for you before you leave, just to thank you real quick. A certificate of appreciation. And this is for you.
Oh my gosh,
Thank you so much.
thank
It's
you.
not a car full of presents, but.
Oh, well.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Polytech. And this is for the entire sector.
Oh,
You please bring it back.
Oh,
Thank you so much for all of your work. We appreciate
Thank
it.
you so much.
Have a great evening.
Thank you.
I don't know if the board has any questions or anything they'd like to ask about, or anything they want to say before you leave. Unless you want to stay. Of course.
I was very moved when Dr. Hart forwarded the email, just, the gratitude that I have for the people that came together for a family in need is just overwhelming, and thank you very much for making that happen.
The best part was giving mom a sense of independence back,
Yeah.
and she could go back to work. And the most important thing we all walked away was, wow, we really need this. We rise together, right? And that was, it was indescribable. And it was probably one of my most favorite holiday seasons in a very long time. I'm grateful for this experience.
I didn't realize how much, we all have been through so much with COVID and with everything that we've experienced, ourself, the giving, how much that helped all of us. And I think that's what the team felt also, how wonderful it was to give of ourselves and to help this family.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Really?
Steph.
Yes,
Great district. Thank you very much.
thank you very much.
Thank you. Moving on to another recognition of Lindsay Sally in our transportation department. Some members I know are here tonight for the Family Assistance Project. Mrs. Lindsay Sally, an HSA volunteer and a parent in our community, developed something called the Family Assistance Project last year to help families in need during the height of the pandemic. She continued this project this year due to its success last year. The Family Assistance Project was once again a huge success with some of the following statistics. 38 families benefited from the project, including 85 children aged 2 months to 21 years, 20 adults. Each child received up to 25 gifts. Each adult received up to 15 gifts. Each family received between 1 and 4 games, between $50 and $100 in grocery gift cards, and many other gift cards depending on family need, size, and age. Each child and adult were adopted and gifted based off of some requests. In addition to those gifts, many additional items were collected to be distributed. Some things included family games and puzzles, Legos, arts and crafts and Play-Doh, Barbie and accessories, toys, girl clothes, boys clothes, men's clothes, women's clothes, ShopRite gift cards, and many other gift cards. This year there were over 125 donors, and Mrs. Sally will admit that she couldn't have done it without them and their help. But furthermore, this project is another perfect example of how the district has partnered with members of the community to serve families of Reddington. Our business office, with the help of Mr. Bohm and Mr. Riso, coordinated package delivery to all of these families with Ms. Cole, our transportation coordinator, and our school bus drivers, Beverly Besco, Debbie Hill, Margaret Brunig, Barbara Hoff, Ruby DiStefano, Justine McAndrews, David Whitesell, and Linda Rad. Some folks are here with us tonight. And we'd like to thank all of these individuals to be recognized for their extraordinary efforts and service to our community. On behalf of the Board of Education, I want to thank you all for everything that you did. Jason, your office, and our bus drivers are here tonight. And Mrs. Sally, I know you're online, and I'll let you say a few words if you'd like.
Hi, yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes?
Hi. Well, you took my thank you, but I'm going to say it anyway. So thank you to Jason Bohm, Katie DeRiso, and Marcy, because the delivery process was definitely something that I needed help with. The transportation, the drivers were amazing. They came right to my house to pick everything up, and they were awesome, super helpful. And Jason and Katie for helping me communicate with the families so they can remain anonymous was awesome. Also sorry, my bird is really attached to me right now, so he's going to be crawling all over me. My friends that helped me wrap and get everything together and organize. This was a lot bigger than last year. I think we were over double, actually probably close to triple what we collected last year. And the donors that I worked with this year were just so amazing. Everybody wanted to give. I think last year everyone received somewhere about 7 gifts, and we didn't include adults last year. This year, kids were receiving up to like 25 gifts each. So it was unreal. So I just want to say thank you so much. And Dr. Hart, thank you also for putting that in the newspaper for me, the article I wrote. That was a big help as well to reach as many people as we could.
You're very welcome. Lindsay, we'll have a certificate that we'll send over to you, and our bus drivers are here tonight. I have something for you. Thank you so much. Barbara?
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Have a great night. Those are the recognitions for this evening. I will make sure that everybody gets certificates. I'll keep going. Dan, is there a presentation? You're all welcome to stay. One more presentation for superintendent's report under the superintendent's report. Jody, is the clicker still over near you, or Dan, you have it? A couple of COVID updates, and I'll go through this briefly. It's some things that have already happened, but just to summarize for the board. Thanks, Dan. So as we move forward, we're continuing in the new year. A couple of updates. Tonight we'll just talk very quickly about the change in quarantine and isolation. I'll provide some more updated statistics about case rates and attendance, and I have a review of hybrid instruction and our new COVID reporting form. So once again, just our guiding principle when it comes to decision making through the pandemic. Our goal is to prioritize in-person full-time instruction to the extent possible. We've been very fortunate over the course of the past couple of weeks, despite the spike in the pandemic, that we've remained open with no virtual days over the course of the past couple of weeks. So we're hoping for a minimal interruption to students' instructional schedules. Some DOH guidelines, some things have changed. When we last spoke as a Board of Education, we were hopeful that the CDC guidelines would be adopted by the Department of Health. And that happened. So last week, over the course of the week, our new quarantine timeframes from the CDC say for people who are unvaccinated or more than 6 months out from their second dose, or more than 2 months after the J&J dose and not yet boosted, the CDC now recommends a quarantine for 5 days, followed by strict mask usage for an additional 5 days. So we weren't sure if or when the Department of Health would adopt those guidelines and recommend those guidelines for schools, but they did. So in summary, what happens now is anyone who is required to quarantine is quarantining now from 5 days of a positive test, onset of symptoms, or contact with someone who's COVID positive. 5 days reduced from 10 days is great. Again, back to our principle, more in-person learning, more in-person instruction. It's also less than 14 days, which we know the quarantine timeframes were even just a couple of months ago, excuse me. We also know that this applies for 5 days of isolation for positive cases. So anyone who tests positive for COVID, the isolation timeframe is 5 days as opposed to 10 days. All of which are followed by 5 days of mask usage, and masks are required in schools, in classrooms, in most settings, except for obviously when eating or drinking or anaerobic activity. And the fully vaccinated definition has adjusted as identified above, and I gave those details out in one of my letters out to the parents as well. So some statistics: what's our current case count, and what does attendance look like, and what might this mean for starting up sports clubs and field trips in the near future? So this is the past 2 weeks of attendance. Each column is a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday. The top column is blank because it's this was our snow day that we had here this particular day. So at the height, I'll just point out a couple stuff. At the height, Thursday the 6th, we had 207 students attending virtual, and this is 76 students absent. The good news is that we've slowly been on the decline. The numbers of virtual students, 174, 190, 145, 129, and 130. Today, the number of virtual students, the good news is, dropped to 74 today. So we're seeing the amount of students that are actually out on quarantine and attending virtually going down, which is telling us that the cases, or the case count, which you'll see in a moment, and the amount of contact tracing we're doing is getting reduced over the next couple of weeks. Numbers of students that are absent, absent is absent, illness, right? A child that's absent is home, not attending virtually, not attending in person, has changed from, 76, 71, 72, 67, 68, dropping a little bit to today. I would say it might be in today's 53. Right? So numbers of students that are missing school due to absence is dropping as well, which is again good news. Our positive cases dashboard, I took this to post on the website for everybody on Friday in preparation for the board meeting. Total number of cases of students in January is 175, staff members is 20. This has gone up since Friday. Total number over the course of the school year, 275 students and then 45 staff members. So you can see about half, if not half, more than half of the cases that have been reported total in the district are coming from the month of January. And we're only 2 weeks into January, right? Sports clubs and field trips. So since we've gone red, our district has suspended extracurricular activities. Although we remain red, we're seeing a drop in our local school case count, as you see. The nurses were reporting dozens right after spring break, up to 15 or 20 cases in the course of one day. District-wide now, we're seeing somewhere around 8 to 10 on a daily basis, right? So the case count is getting lower, which is, again, a sign that we're moving in the right direction once again. We remain hopeful that the district can reinstate extracurricular activities within the next few weeks. We may even get in the end of the winter sports season, which is next week, and then playoffs are the following week. So this is all trending in a good, positive direction for us. Although I do suspect, because the activity report usually lags behind about a week, I anticipate we'll still be in the red this coming Thursday, although I'm not good at predicting. But I think that we're going to start to see a steady decline that'll have us go back into the orange. So I think our activity is going to become lower and lower over the course of the next couple of weeks. So again, signs that we're moving in the right direction. Hybrid instruction, the cameras are on. This is really a repeat, just a reminder from last time. There are cases when the child can log in remotely, identified as a close contact in school, somewhere else, that they are COVID positive. And if they are experiencing symptoms and the nurse has excluded them, awaiting a COVID test result is also another reason why students are logging in virtually. So if we're excluding them from school, that was one thing that was asked last time at the last board meeting, that we definitely incorporated into our definition of students who've been logging remotely, knowing that that was something that was happening. We have cameras on. They're staying on over the course of this week so that students can log into their classes and still have access to virtual instruction. But you see those numbers are coming down. So this is a short-term measure. At some point, we will likely be going back to, relatively soon, back to the tutoring hours and things that we have been doing by February. But for right now, we think that this volume of students does require the cameras to be on so that we can have students log into their classes remotely. And remember, please use the new COVID reporting form. Our nurses have reported today that the COVID reporting form has been extraordinarily helpful in getting all of the information they need to contact, trace, contact parents, and manage the amount of cases that are coming into the district at any given time. And that's all I have as far as an update. So, Mrs. Hample, I'll turn it back to the board for questions.
Just one question. You mentioned the red and bringing back the extracurricular activities. So, or if we go to orange, is that an indicator of when you would bring back extracurricular?
It would be, but the problem is that the activity report, because it's a week behind, so we're still going to be red this week because of last week's activity. I don't think that we'll probably turn orange for another week, maybe 2. This is just, kind of a pattern that I've seen. By that time, the winter sports season will be over, so I'm using kind of local data to make a determination about whether or not we want to look at sports and clubs and extracurriculars coming back on. But certainly in orange, I have no problem. That's a sure indicator of getting back to the way things were in December.
Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? All right, moving on. We are now open to the public, limited to action items on the agenda. And if you could come up to the podium, state your name and make your comments.
Justina Ryan. Good evening, Dr. Hart and members of the Board of Ed. My name is Justina Ryan. I have 2 daughters in the district, one at RMS and one at White House School. I attended the last Board of Ed meeting and voiced my concerns in regards to contact tracing and the amount of days that students are missing when the end result is most of these students end up testing negative. I was informed that our district is following the guidelines set forth by the New Jersey Department of Health. I read through the document, which I actually have right here, and realized these are recommendations and not mandates. The only mandate listed in the guidelines is masks must be worn by all passengers on buses. But when it comes to contact tracing, it states that close contacts should quarantine at home. These are recommendations. With all due respect, our administration doesn't have their hands tied. You have the decision to let our children stay in school if they are symptom-free. And we, as the parents, have every right to keep our children in school. These are the formative years of a children's social, emotional, and physical development. This critical part of their development takes place in a structured classroom. This same classroom that 2 years ago was filled with group work, playing instruments, hands-on science projects, circle time, and so much more. 2 years of my time or yours is not the same as 2 years of an 8-year-old's time. My daughter has lost 25% of her formative years. Don't make that 50%. She thankfully has been attending her regular twice-weekly gymnastics class. Her gymnastics studio has stayed open despite rising cases. The unmasked gymnasts have remained healthy, all while touching the same equipment, yet our students can't play their recorders, sit on the library steps together, or work in small groups. We are no longer living in a pandemic, and we need to start living our lives again, just like we did with the flu, an everyday cold, and now with COVID. The students are thankfully not experiencing life-threatening symptoms from COVID, and you need to reevaluate these guidelines you are choosing and forcing us to follow. There is no longer a need for students to stay home due to contact tracing if they show 0 symptoms. Stadiums are packed with unmasked spectators, but our children are masked and being sent home for days with 0 symptoms. Concert goers are attending concerts unmasked, but our children are masked and are required to quarantine when they are healthy. Contact sports are being played unmasked, but our children are masked and missing school while testing negative. You need to reevaluate these guidelines you are choosing and forcing our students to follow. Middletown Township Schools in New Jersey has updated their plan as of December 13th. It is voluntary to quarantine if you have been identified as a close contact. A school district in Ohio has 4,600 students and has been keeping their kids in school as long as they are symptom-free since August, completely virtual-free with 100% in-school instruction. A very simple yet common sense approach that works, and it can work for us also if you choose to allow it. I have copies here to share with you and the board. Once again, the guidelines the Department of Health has set forth are simply that, guidelines. I am asking on behalf of myself, my children, and many others in our district to make the right decision for our children. Let our children learn the way they so desperately need to. Keep the after-school activities, sports, clubs, field trips. Let them work in small groups, play their instruments, and participate in hands-on science projects and stop the contact tracing. It's time to allow them to learn and grow academically, socially, physically, and mentally in a healthy school environment. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
How are we handling the online? Because I'm new.
What we've done in the past is in person first and then online after.
Okay, because we have one hand raised, so I want to make sure I don't forget her.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
Good evening. My name is Chris Howell. My wife is Jennifer Howell. I have 4 kids. 2 go to RMS, 2 go to Hunter Central. Tonight, this is my first time I've ever come to a board meeting. We're 2 years into a pandemic, and I thought it was time to say my piece. I've been given strict instructions by my wife, who's appearing virtually, to read a letter that's been provided to the board members in advance of this meeting tonight. You all have it, or should have it. When I sit here, you know, and I've been sitting here and listening to Dr. Hart talk about the numbers, and you're gonna hear, I'm sure, the same story from everyone. It all has the same problem, you know, same theme. I think it's just words on paper. I really want to read this letter. I promise my wife I would do that. I think before I do that, though, I have a few questions for the board, a few questions for the people online, and a few questions for the people in this room. I'm in the business of evidence. I rely on evidence day in and day out. And there's all different types of evidence. There's direct evidence, right? We've seen plenty of direct evidence in this pandemic. What's direct evidence? Somebody goes, gets a PCR test, tests positive, that's a positive case. We see it, it's tested by an objective test, direct evidence. We've seen a lot of circumstantial evidence of COVID in this pandemic. What's that? Plenty of kids come to school with a sniffle, tired, sore throat, false taste of smell. Now that's not COVID, we don't know what that is. It's not been tested, right? But it's circumstantial evidence, sounds like COVID, right? We've heard a lot about scientific evidence. That seems to be what all the board relies on. CDC guidelines, Department of Health guidelines, right? What do they rely on? The science. Can we rely on the science 2 years in? It's been all over the place, right? I think the board here hasn't relied on one piece of evidence. It's called anecdotal evidence. I'm going to read to you what the definition of anecdotal evidence is. It's evidence in the form of stories that people tell about what is really happening in life. I don't think any of you ever considered the anecdotal evidence. So those questions I have, and I'm going to ask everybody in this room, and I'd ask that they participate. I don't know the outcome. I'm in the business, you're not supposed to ask a question you don't know the answer to. But I don't care. Maybe I'm wrong. And if I'm wrong, I'm not going to read this letter. Because then it doesn't have any meaning. Or maybe it's offending somebody in the room. And I'm not here to offend anybody. But I'm here for the board here, maybe some real life anecdotal evidence. So those people that are up here on this virtual, you can hear me. Turn your video on so I can see you, so everybody can see you. I've counted, there's about 20 people in this room, about 8 or 10 of you, there's about another 20 up there, there's 50 people. I'm going to ask 50 people the same questions. And if you don't want to participate, don't participate. But I think you should take it into consideration when you're making all these decisions, because you always rely on the science. Dr. Hart, you just showed us all the numbers. It seems to me that's all you rely on when you're deciding virtual versus in-person, taking away our after-school activities and these guidelines on quarantine that don't make any sense. So the question I have, and I don't see anybody turning their screen on, but I hope you would and participate. I'm going to ask one question. The one question I'm going to ask is raise your hand if you know any child who has gotten sick, showing symptoms from COVID-19. Any child you know in your life. It could be your kids, your grandkids, your neighbors, colleagues, anyone. And I'll ask that question, raise your hand. I do. Of course, we know everybody in this room knows a kid that got sick and showed symptoms, right? Anybody? Raise their hand. Let's the record reflect. Everybody in the room is raising their hand, right? Everybody in this room knows a person, a kid, a child. That's what we're here about, right? We're about children. Board members, you don't know anybody? Thank you. Carol, you don't know one kid that's gotten sick and shown symptoms?
I'm just not going to comment. No
Another
offense.
problem. It's about getting that anecdotal evidence, right? The more people that participate, the more powerful that anecdotal evidence is, right? You You've just seen everybody in the room raise their hand. They know a kid that's gotten sick, right? Anybody up there on the screen, raise their hand? Anybody? If you're not telling the truth. Everybody in here knows somebody, a kid, that has shown symptoms. It's real. COVID's real. Now, the next question, though, is, does anybody know a kid that's shown severe symptoms that required hospitalization? Not went to the hospital with COVID, but went to the hospital because of COVID. Does anybody know that? Any hands in the room? Let the record reflect, there's 20 people here, and there's not one kid that they know. And how many kids do each person know? We know 10, 50, 20 kids. We have 50 people in the room here. We have board members that don't want to raise their hand because they don't want to acknowledge the anecdotal evidence, which is you don't know a kid. Not one child that's gone to the hospital with severe disease. Not one. Where are they? Where are the hands? Not one on the board. Let the record reflect. Not one person raising their hand virtually either. Now I'm going to ask the last question. This is the real big one. Does anybody know a child? I already know the answer, but does anybody know a child that not only went to the hospital with severe COVID disease, but died? Anybody raise their hand? Do you know any child has ever died of COVID? Let the record reflect. There's not one person, 50 people. We can extrapolate that anecdotal evidence out to 500 people. 50 people each know 10 people, 10 children. That's 500 people in our community, and we don't know one kid that's not only gone to the hospital with severe disease, we don't even know one child who's died of it. What are we doing here? What are we doing? Dr. Hart, all you're doing is relying on red or orange. All you're relying on is the numbers. How many kids are out sick? How many kids aren't showing up to school for who knows what reason? Or how many kids are on virtual versus not? Yeah, the numbers are going in the right direction. But if you take the position without just looking at the anecdotal, powerful evidence, forget the science, forget the direct evidence of positive cases, and just look at what is before you. You just saw it. Nobody's going to the hospital. Nobody's dying. What are we doing? So the reason why I question reading this, because if somebody raised their hand and they said they lost a loved one, then there's no reason for me to read this letter. Because I'd be offending that one person in this room. Because somebody died of this disease. Some child that you supposedly are trying to protect. But I don't know what we're protecting here. There is no children dying. And they're not even going to the hospital. So I am going to read this out of respect to my wife and what needs to be said. You've heard it already. You're going to hear it again. You have it. But I'm going to put it on the record. I wouldn't have read this letter if somebody told me somebody was severely impacted by this. Some child was. We know there's grandparents, parents, people with a lot of comorbidities that die of this. Yes, but your job in this room, in this building, is to take care of the children. We can't worry about everybody else in the world. We just have to worry about the children. That's it. So Dr. Hart, this letter is addressed to you and the board members, but it's in response to the email that you sent on January 10, 2022. District letter also from January 11, 2022. As noted, the Reddington Township School District continues to follow the protocols and the guidance set forth by the CDC and the Department of Health. Again, we reiterate our concerns and objections to this adherence to nothing more than guidance. You've already heard that. You're going to hear it again. Guidance, that's all it is guidance. And it's contrary to the district priorities and does not need to be followed. Guidance that is discriminatory in nature, it segregates healthy students from in-person learning environments. And as you stated, the district has always and continues to prioritize the educational, social, and emotional needs of its students. However, based on personal experience of so many families within our district, we can say without hesitation that claim is simply false. I'm here today to address the 2 points the quarantine that policy you have in place and the after-school activities that you've taken away from these students. First, the quarantining period. Quarantine period for the close contact that our district follows is discriminatory on its face, as it restricts in-person instruction for unvaccinated students. Under the current policy, unvaccinated close contacts are mandated to quarantine for a period of 5 days, whereas vaccinated close contact may continue to attend in-person instruction without restriction. According to the CDC, those who are fully vaccinated can still get COVID. Additionally, the CDC has confirmed that anyone can transmit the virus to another person, even if they're vaccinated and doesn't even have a symptom. In fact, the CDC has also confirmed that breakthrough infections in people who are fully vaccinated and likely to occur. Thus, according to the CDC, the only reason for the vaccine is to prevent serious illness and not to stop transmission, which right now we know is questionable with this new Omicron variant we have. Yet, despite these findings, our district continues to implement protocols that segregate vaccinated and unvaccinated children. As stated in our prior communications, our schools are not medical facilities and should not be restricted one's right to a thorough and efficient education based on vaccination status. You are an educator, you're not a doctor. Under the district's ongoing practices, it's clear that the district prioritizes the educational needs of only its vaccinated students and falls short of prioritizing the education needs of the unvaccinated students. The second point I'd like to address is about after-school programs that have been eliminated, prioritizing the social, emotional, and educational needs of our students. It's been 2 weeks since the district has restricted extracurricular activities. We again reiterate our objections and concerns to these restrictions. The adverse effects results from remote learning and restrictions in extracurricular activities are astonishing. To begin with, the statewide test scores that just came out clearly show that the negative and sobering impact that remote learning has and continues to have on our students. According to the reported scores, a significant majority of students are in need of strong support to accommodate the shortcomings of the district's remote learning policies. Sadly, this is just the beginning. Districts closer to home have acknowledged these shortcomings. As stated by Dr. McGann, the superintendent of our neighboring Flemington-Raritan school districts, he says, in quotes, "Closing schools comes at a cost. We know from the pandemic in the last 22 months that academic progress is low as a result of the pandemic and closing our schools. We know kids continue to feel isolated and depressed and sad when they're not in school. Although our neighboring districts also follow the guidance of the New Jersey Department of Health, they have elected to continue with uninterrupted in-person instruction, and all after-school extracurricular activities are still going on. In making this decision, Dr. McGann truly listened to and gave proper weight to the social, emotional, and educational needs of its students. Additionally, school districts throughout the nation have seen an alarming uptick in the social and emotional behaviors that need to be, and the needs of adolescents as a result of the restrictions imposed upon them through their schools. Not only are children falling far behind academically, but suicide attempts have risen, gun violence, drug use, a whole myriad of problems. Children have become introvert, more quiet, afraid to express their emotions, refuse to talk, engage, all the things we've heard. You've heard it all before, right? Same things. My own personal experience for the past 2 years, it is over 3 academic grade levels. We've been told time and time again that our districts are following the guidance and recommendations of the CDC and the Department of Health in an attempt to mitigate further transmission of COVID. This claim, along with many others, as stated above, is simply impossible and actually implemented. As you know, I have 4 children. 2 attend the schools here and 2 attend middle school. Attend the high school. I've told you that. You already know the policies of RMS, so I don't need to reiterate that. But the schedule for my 2 other children in the high school is restricted to 5 half-day schedules. They're going to school. They can't eat lunch. They're going to school, though. Are they allowed to do after-school extracurricular activities? Yes, they are. At the end of the day, what happens? Our children all come home, all of us under the same roof. The varying disparities and contradictions among the policies, protocols, and guidance being followed not only by Reddington School District, but also within the surrounding community are nothing short but absurd and make absolutely no sense. One school's full day or half day in person, we're full day, one's no after school, the other one has after school activities. And at the end of the day, we're all coming home breathing the same air. Makes no sense. So based on the foregoing, we ask and we respectfully submit that the protocols and guidance that the district follows no longer serve the best interests of our students. We encourage you as the superintendent and the board, along with the entire board, to recognize the growing concerns over the educational, emotional, social needs of our students. We ask you to recognize the discriminatory protocols being followed. We ask you to stand up and start advocating for our children and providing them with their right to an effective education that is free from interruption and isolation. We ask that you allow your students to grow, learn, prosper through not only education, but through extracurricular activities. This district has lost the faith and trust in so many families. We encourage you to change your current policies, listen to the voices of the families and students, and I'm going to say listen to the anecdotal evidence that was just presented to you tonight. Not a single child has come to the hospital, not a single child has died of this virus. Of the 500 people that could be extrapolated out of the evidence we saw tonight. Thank you.
Do we have any other comments? I know we have one from online. Do we want to jump to Laura Kelleher?
Hi, thank you. I'm not as prepared as the previous speakers. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, thank you.
I'm not as prepared as the other speakers. I am just coming as a parent with anecdotal. I coach one of our girls' basketball teams in Reddington. We have been shut down for the better part of 2 months, right? Contact tracing has sent us all home, has sent the girls' middle school team home for basically the past 2 months and for the foreseeable future. We also have a travel school basketball team. We are not able to practice because our schools have now been shut down for any recreational activity. So what that means is our girls have been sent home and our boys, and they are sitting at home. You come home from school, they no longer have after school activities. They no longer have athletics to go to. I understand that is not the most important thing for some people, but for children who are active, it's extremely important that they remain active. That's what keeps them healthy. That's what keeps them from having comorbidities. We want them active. We want them out in the world. And I appreciate this is a very serious virus for a certain element of the world. But at this point, you have sent children home and restricted them from using our schools' facilities. And they are sitting at home, and guess what they're doing? They're sitting on their electronics. So all those things we've been talking to them about for the past, I don't know, however many years about staying off electronics and don't stay on your screens, they're doing that now. So we've taken a couple of steps back. And then I'll take one step back and let you know that every single activity our girls' travel team has been canceled from, our opponents on those teams, when we tell them our district is not allowing us to use our facilities, they have accommodated. So every single game we have had with an opponent has been rescheduled in our neighboring districts, in their gyms, at their times. They're giving up their practice time so our girls can come and play their games with them. So I will say this does seem very local, and I appreciate there are so many difficulties in this situation. But I do ask you to consider that other districts are not shutting down their children from athletics. And athletics really do keep our children healthy. Their coaches at RMS are amazing. They do amazing things with them 5 days a week. We want them back with their coaches. We want them back on the courts. We want them back on their rec games at the younger levels. We need them back to being healthy and active children. And so I'm going to just leave it there, but I just will say again, the people who spoke before me were very eloquent. I did not prepare anything, so I'm just kind of speaking from the cuff and as a mom and as a coach of children in our district. So thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Lynn.
I guess I can go next.
Can you come to the podium and state your name for the
My
record?
name is Delia Schreiber. I live in Remington. This talk is mostly for the parents, so I'm not sure about the please. But I guess we're all parents, so. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to you, Dr. Hart, board members, parents, fellow colleagues. I think we have one here, I don't know. Now, as the opinion, I stand before you today as a resident of Remington Township and as a parent of a former Remington student. The opinions I express are my own. I apologize if I speak too fast or if the accent is whatever. Now, as I tell the following story, play it in your mind as if it were your own story. It's January 18th, 1995. On arriving home from work, you find your daughter at the bottom of the steps. You live on the second floor, so you think maybe she fell. But there are no broken bones as far as you can tell. You try to revive her, but to no avail. You can't call 911 because you don't speak English. So you run outside and you stop the first vehicle, which happens to be a garbage truck, and you cry out, "My daughter, my daughter." Those are the words you know. One of the men run in and call 911 for you. Thankfully, you live in Newark, which isn't much to be thankful for other than the fact that you live, minutes away from the University of Medicine Dentistry. The ambulance comes, your daughter is put on a stretcher, and there begins your nightmare. Using the Glasgow Coma Scale, they assess your daughter. They measure her motor and verbal responses and whether or not she has spontaneous eye opening, testing whether her eyes open to speech or to pain or whether they open at all, or they remain closed. A total score of 15 means that the patient obeys motor commands fully, has verbal responses that are alert and oriented, and has spontaneous eye opening. That's an optimal score. A score of 3 is considered a vegetative state. Your daughter scores a 4. She's in a minimally conscious state. She offers no meaningful responses, nor does she engage in any voluntary activities. In a 2016 study in the Annals of Clinical and Translational Neurology, the survival rate after a traumatic brain injury, severe enough to cause deep coma and low Glasgow Coma Scale, is generally poor, even in young adults. And studies show a very high mortality rate, ranging between 76 to 89%. Of the surviving patients, only a very few recover to a good outcome. The majority of survivors do so with permanent disorders, consciousness, and severe disabilities. Yet I stand in front of you today doing something that I was meant to do. The daughter was me. 27 years ago today, on this day, January 18th, 1995, I went into a coma for 21 days. And I was ultimately diagnosed with encephalitis. Encephalitis is inflammation of the brain, which happens to be a potential side effect for many vaccines. Could it be that I took one for the team? Maybe. There are always casualties and nothing is 100%. Or could it be that I survived to share my story with you today? I choose to believe it's the latter. I am a vaccine-injured person. Before I headed to college, I received a vaccine, and 5 months later I passed out and went into a coma. Let me be clear. I was really healthy. I didn't drink. I didn't smoke. I ate healthy. And I ran a lot. I used to run a lot. Now I can't run. Yet I got so sick that my parents were told that their daughter may never be able to feed herself. She may never be able to walk again. She may never be able to live independently. And hopefully, she'll remember who she is when she wakes up, if she wakes up. My decision to stand in front of you today has not been made in haste. Since the fall of 2020, when the conversations around vaccines began to consume all of us, I have paid close attention to the trajectory of the band-aids being imposed. I personally find it completely inappropriate and un-American to coerce healthy adults and children to getting an experimental drug. What's even more disturbing is the lack of informed consent and transparency regarding the vaccines. Instead, there's been a magnification of potential benefits and suppression of risks associated with it. In a recent paper published in the Toxicology Reports Journal titled, "Why Are We Vaccinating Children Against COVID-19?" Using data from the CDC, the authors noted that COVID-19 deaths per capita are inevitable in children. Like the gentleman said, while deaths after COVID vaccination are small, but not negligible. The chances of serious damage over their lifetime from toxic inoculations are not negligible. I don't know if many of you are familiar with the vaccine adverse reporting system, a monitoring system that is co-sponsored by the CDC, FDA, and agencies of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. But the number of adverse events following COVID vaccines has grown exponentially. The cumulative number of deaths from every vaccination since 1990 until today is 9,372. Since 2020, the number of deaths following COVID vaccination is 21,745. With the VAERS data suggesting a significant number of potential adverse reactions, and the CDC's data suggesting that children have low risk of severe illness or hospitalization, the universal administration of this vaccine to children in the absence of long-term studies is nonsensical. I don't stand here as an expert in medicine, but nor am I an anti-vaxxer, but I am a critical thinker. I do believe in having systems in place to ensure that what we inject into our children is safe. Fellow parents, if you have not yet vaccinated your children or are considering the booster, please take into consideration there are no long-term safety studies to determine the impact they have on your children's lives. They're still being administered under the emergency use authorization. And despite initially being told differently, vaccines don't seem to prevent transmission or infection. Please do your own research and inform yourselves about the potential benefits and risks of the vaccine and other things that you can do to protect the well-being of yourselves and your loved ones. Lastly, I want to say that I am thankful to be working in a district that is respecting the individual rights when it comes to medical decisions of both students and staff. And I am grateful to the board for creating an environment that allows community members like myself to openly discuss these tough topics. In honor of Dr. Martin Luther King, I will close with this most important quote. We begin to die the day we remain silent about things that matter. It is my hope that more of you choose to not remain silent because I know that I'm not alone in this. Thank you and good night.
Speak, Eric Swirling, Reddington Township. First, I'd like to thank my fellow members of the public for their very heartfelt statements. This is the great thing about a Board of Ed meeting is that everybody can have their say. That's one of the wonders of democracy. Everybody can express their opinions. And it's to the board to listen to this. But I'd like to say that I understand the complexity of the issue from the point of view of the board and from the point of view of Dr. Hart who's making the decisions. There are the decision to decide how to make policy is one that is based upon an analysis of all the data that's available at that given time. anecdotal evidence is valuable, but it is only covers the people immediately around you. Does not, the best guidance is to look at, frankly, statistically robust samplings of large populations. That is really how epidemiologically competent decisions are made. We here, I should say we, school boards across the United States are protecting their citizens, their students from active shooter situations. Though we, for instance, and we here in, should say that Reddington Township has spent a lot of money and a lot of time and effort to do just that. But nobody here, I don't believe, knows anybody anecdotally who was affected by an active shooter. So we are going off of other experiences elsewhere in the United States and protecting our students appropriately. At one point, I looked at the statistics from the American Academy of Pediatric Physicians, I think that's the name of it, and the number of children from the ages of up to the age of 18 who were impacted, either hospitalized and or deaths from the pandemic, were roughly the equivalent of those from all school active shootings in the United States. And so if we are protecting our students with all the measures that we do, because the school is entrusted with, above all, the safety of their children. If we are protecting, if the school is protecting the students based upon a threat that has not yet materialized here, but is potentially fatal and injurious elsewhere, the decision may well extend to the current situation. Now, that being said, it is not lost at all on anybody in this room that students in the classroom perform academically better. It is better for their social, emotional development. That is not a question to anybody, in front of anybody. The district has made some tremendous efforts to make sure that the students are in the classroom for the maximum amount of time possible. I'm sure that as the situation evolves, that the district taking into account that critical component, which is students in the classroom actively participating in all the arts, all the athletics, will move there as quickly as they possibly can, especially with the input of impassioned members of the public speaking to them. I believe that the efforts that they're making are measured and logical.
Thank you, Mrs. Brown. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
We have a member on the audience,
Okay.
and so Ms. Colantuano.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Allie Colantuono. I have two boys in the district. I have Carmine in 8th grade and Gianni's in 5th. My husband and I have owned a house here for about 8 years, and I grew up on Stonehouse Drive in Lake Cushatonk. And my husband and I own 2 small businesses in the area. So needless to say, we love Reddington so much. I'm not nearly as well versed as the other speakers today, and I really wasn't prepared. But I must say that I love the teachers in the district, and they're a huge reason why we moved into town. I adore some of them so much that I have run the Teachers Appreciation Week since we moved here in White House School and Reddington Middle School. And I take pride and honor in doing so because I think that some of them are seriously like angels on earth. I don't know how they do what they do. With that being said, I think it's so important for our children to be in school. I think I'll speak for some of my like-minded mom friends. Some of them are on this call right now, in saying that we just want our children's freedoms to be given back to them. They deserve that. And I really need an answer as to why my children are muzzled up every day at school and they don't deserve it. They are not the ones being highly affected by this serious virus. The elderly, the sick, the immune compromised, those are the folks that are being affected by this. And this is something that's not going to go away. This is going to be something that we have to deal with probably for our lifetime. And it's something that we have to learn to cope with. And our children, luckily, 99.9% of them have the highest success rate in fighting off this virus. I'd like to just end my thoughts with saying, I want my children to have their God-given right to breathe back to them. Thank you, everybody, and Happy New Year, and I hope to see everybody soon.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Kevin Ryan, two girls here in resident schools. I'd just like to give a quick rebuttal from, I guess, the statement given to, I'm sorry, did you hear? Yeah. Is anyone here familiar with what a straw man argument is? It's basically a flimsy argument saying if situation A is true, if you use gun violence or something, then situation B, like, that has some correlations to the situation. That's nonsensical. And I just couldn't sit and let that go by. You know, we spend a lot of money to prevent gun violence. That's great. Even though it doesn't happen very often. The reason why I'm okay with that is because it doesn't affect our children. We're not masking them up. We're not like, you know, stopping after-school sports to deal with that issue. It doesn't have very little. It has very little impact on our children, so that's fine. COVID, your rules, and they're your rules. Your hands aren't tied by the government or the state. Your COVID rules are affecting our children. You heard it here many times over. That's what I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any other comment?
I'll be brief, I promise.
Can you state your name?
Sorry, Andrew, I have two children, one at Three Bridges and one at Hollenbrook. In the beginning of this meeting when we came in, I heard how awesome the Discover Lab is, and it's a class my children love. It promotes critical thinking, problem solving, overcoming challenges, inquiry-based learning, asking why. You know, my kids ask me every day, why do I have to wear a mask all day? Why? Because I get my kids together with all their friends, not masked. We'll sit 14 deep at a hibachi table and eat. And guess what? We're not getting each other sick, but we are keeping our kids together and giving them their time. So I guess the only thing I really want to come up here and say is if we're teaching our kids to ask why and solve problems, then why are we stifling them with the mask and mandates every day? That's all I have to say.
Any other comment? Okay, thank you, everybody, for your comments and your input. Moving on then, we had correspondence. We had 4 emails regarding quarantine. We had an email regarding moving within Reddington and an email regarding the DOJ school guidelines. Board action. Can I get a motion to approve the administration reports 1.01 to 1.02?
So move that.
Second, Camille. Can I get a roll call?
Mrs. Betterman.
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore.
Yes.
Mr. Beach.
Yes.
Mrs. Pogorski.
Yes.
Mr. Wallace.
Yes.
Mrs. Wolf.
Yes.
Dr. Sosiello.
Yes.
Mrs. Sample.
Yes.
Passes.
Approval of minutes. Can I get a motion to approve 2.01?
So move that.
Second?
Second, Carla.
Any questions or comments on the minutes? Not hearing any. Can we do a roll call?
Mrs. Betterman.
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore.
Yes.
Mr. Peach.
Yes.
Mrs. Pogorski.
Yes.
Mr. Wallace.
Yes.
Mrs. Wolf.
Yes.
Dr. Sosiello.
Yes.
Mrs. Sample.
Yes.
Passes.
Finance facilities. Can I get a motion to adopt 3.01 to 3.08?
So move that.
Second, Randy.
We have a committee report.
Yes, the Finance Committee met on Thursday, January 6th, and the first thing that we discussed were the 2021 audit results. There was a presentation from Mr. Politano and Mr. Weiss. They reviewed the audit results, including the revenues, expenditures, the fund balance, and enrollment data. There was excellent news in all categories. No recommendations were made. They emphasized that our district is financially sound and consistently managed in a cost-effective manner. It's certainly been a commendable job from our school business administrator, Jason Bohm, and Dr. Hart. We thank you for that. The next thing we discussed were the 21-22 capital project, starting with at Three Bridges School, the sewer blockage. That project has been completed. There's a new clean out and access panel that was installed. Then we talked about the HVAC controls at RMS, the White House School, and Three Bridges. Their upgrades were recommended, providing remote access to the system. Most of the costs will be supported by grant money, and the committee agreed to move forward. We then discussed other maintenance and IT projects, including there's been final inspections on the Hollenbrook roof project. Stair tread replacement at RMS is delayed due to supply chain issues. We're still planning some kindergarten walkway to the playground at Three Bridges School, and they're continuing the painting projects at White House School. Next, we've reviewed a security measure, specifically door stops. There's ongoing conversation regarding the safety and security measures that are considered throughout the district. We discussed the door stops that are similar to a deadbolt concept. This may help in an emergency, but it also raises other potential safety concerns. So the safety and security team will review this. Next, we talked about the Reddington Township American Rescue Plan Committee meeting, which happened on December 16th, and involving $1.6 million. One thing that was brought up was the cell service and emergency response coverage, primarily at RMS and Hollenbrook. There was a discussion whether or not to move forward with these suggestions. We agreed that these upgrades would be worthwhile for our schools. And we also talked about in-building through repeaters or other devices, and outside the building through the cell tower. Another thing discussed regarding this financing was a shared service partnership on transportation. There was discussion regarding how to maximize this service utilizing our bus drivers and provide an additional incentive for them. We'll receive further clarification on that. We also talked about another option, recreation or summer camp scholarships, to possibly make this available to low-income families. And the last thing that was suggested were mental health services, and there was a sharing of these ideas and the programs that we have implemented. The next topic revolved around payroll software and electronic timesheets. This will be utilized for overtime hours and any special pays. Training will be necessary, but it is cost effective. There's a one-time cost of $4,000 and a monthly support of $185. And we may pilot this program in the spring. We then addressed Lindsay Solage on the transportation recognition that we recognized tonight, that the holiday gifts were delivered to over 50 students and their families in our town. It was an amazing effort that was supported by many people. Lindsay and the transportation members were recognized tonight at the board meeting. And then we just set our next meeting for Friday, January the 28th at 8:30.
Thank you. Do we have any comments or questions on the minutes or the agenda items? Not hearing any. Can I get a roll call?
Mrs. Betterman,
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore,
Yes.
Mr. Beach,
Yes.
Mrs. Bogorski,
Yes.
Mr. Wallace,
Yes.
Mrs. Wolf,
Yes.
Dr. Cerciolo,
Yes.
Mrs. Sample.
Yes.
Passes.
Ed Tech, can I get a motion to approve 4.01 to 4.09? So move, Beth.
Second Tom.
We have a committee report?
We do, yes. The Ed Tech Committee met on January 13th. We discussed the summer enrichment program. Colleen Ogden is planning the summer enrichment program. It will run the weeks of July 26th and August 2nd, 4 days each week, with both half-day and full-day options. Programs will include art, STEM, welcome to RMS, and new this year, a 2-day kindergarten orientation session. Registration will open late January. Information has gone out to parents in the weekly Genesis blasts. A flyer for the kindergarten orientation session will be included in the packet during kindergarten registration. We also discussed curriculum updates. Sarah Pouch presented to the committee the following math curriculum updates to include the state's new career readiness, life literacies and key skills, and computer science standards. The following will be updated: grade 2 math, grade 3 math, grade 3 honors math, grade 4 math, grade 4 honors, grade 5 math, grade 5 honors math, grade 6, and algebra 2. Next, we discussed the special education extended school year program. Stacy Beagle discussed the ESY program, which will begin on July 11th and will run for 5 weeks, Monday through Thursday, ending on August 11th. There will be 2 ESY sessions this year for preschool, an AM and a PM session. There will also be a program for reading for students currently in the resource room, which will run Monday through Thursday for 4 weeks. We also discussed the Parent Academy on January 25th. Sherry Creel discussed the upcoming Parent Academy session, which will be about digital citizenship. The session is at 6 p.m. on January 25th. It will be virtual. Dr. Hart, Sherry Creel, Tiffany Barca, and Stephanie Singer will be presenting ways that parents can help encourage good behavior online. Pre-registration is required. Please RSVP to rsvp@reddington.k12.nj.us. The meeting link is on the Genesis Blast. There were no texts to approve in this meeting. And the last thing we discussed, Dr. Hart gave an overview to the new board and committee members about the types of items that are discussed in the Ed Tech Committee. Next meeting is scheduled February 3rd at 8:30 a.m.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on the minutes or agenda items?
I have a question on 4.06, the field trip. Does the decision as to where the field trip is located have any bearing on whether or not it can occur with field trips being reinstated?
Not necessarily,
Okay.
no. It's a matter of, with all the decisions, it's kind of a matter of, do we want to put students on a bus, in close contact with one another for an extended period of time, if in the, event that there's contact tracing or something like that. But not necessarily, right? It's just, we have life skills class that go out to eat at the diner kind of thing, go to ShopRite, that they're local, but eating at a diner might also be something that, preserving in-person instruction could be something that we might not want to do for the time being.
On that same agenda item, they currently have a Crayola Factory virtual.
They do.
So would this be in addition to the virtual one, or would they just?
Yeah, so Three Bridges piloted the virtual one as part of our virtual field trips initiative and partnership. So they did the virtual one, and then this one White House adopted because there was a field trip that they couldn't go on because of somewhere that had closed down or somewhere that wasn't accepting students because of COVID. So they found another field trip that they could go on to replace that.
I didn't know if White House was also doing the virtual one, so I wasn't sure if this was like a follow-up after they did the virtual one.
No, I think Three Bridges did the virtual, and then White House is doing the in-person. Yeah. Because of one that was canceled, so they were looking to try to find something else to replace it.
Any other questions or comments?
Everybody good?
Can we get a roll call, please?
Mrs. Betterman.
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore.
Yes.
Mr. Peach.
Yes.
Mrs. Bogorski.
Yes.
Mr. Wallace.
Yes.
Mrs. Wolf.
Yes.
Dr. Cerciolo.
Yes.
Mrs. Sample.
Yes.
Passes.
Personnel. Can I get a motion to adopt 5.01 to 5.09?
So move that.
Second, Carolyn?
And we have a committee report.
We do. So the Personnel Committee met on January 11th. We discussed staffing issues, the Mirimus testing for staff, job fairs that will be held this spring, other personnel matters, the agenda items that you see on today's agenda of new hires, long-term subs, retirements, and other leave. And we established the next meeting for Wednesday, February 16th at 8:30 a.m.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments on the? Not hearing any. Can I get a roll call?
Mrs. Betterman.
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore.
Yes.
Mr. Peach.
Yes.
Mrs. Bogorski.
Yes.
Mr. Wallace.
Yes.
Mrs. Wolf.
Yes.
Dr. Cerciolo.
Yes.
Mrs. Sample.
Yes.
Passes.
Moving on to communication. Can I get a motion to adopt 6.01 to 6.02?
So move that.
Second, Carolyn?
And we did not have a committee report. Yeah.
You haven't met yet.
No, we have not met yet because if we have, I wasn't there.
We hope to get a meeting on the books, I know that. It's on my radar.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are there any questions or comments on the agenda items?
I just had the one comment on energy conservation policy. Under item number 5, I think it was, there was something about vampire loads, and in parentheses, there was a clarification that was very, very restrictive, and so I would like to propose that either that's removed or the clarification is something a lot more general, like vampire loads are items that have displays or have standby power. That's my only comment.
And I think we can accommodate that without holding back the policy.
I would hope that's a minor comment. I mean, that's my opinion.
It's a clarifying on a definition. Doesn't change. The vampire load is still there.
What I had done too, Jody, after I got your email, and I did update it in the actual document that's here now, so it is updated with that clarifying statement in parentheses, just so that everybody knows that it's there. But it just defines that term.
Any other comments? Can I get a roll call?
Ms. Betterman.
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore.
Yes.
Mr. Peach.
Yes.
Mrs. Bogorski.
Yes.
Mr. Wallace.
Yes.
Mrs. Wolf.
Yes.
Dr. Cerciolo.
Yes.
Ms. Sample.
Yes.
Passes.
Unfinished business. Do we have any unfinished business we need to discuss? Not hearing any. Do we have any new business from the board? We are now open to the public for anything on or off the agenda.
We have a hand raised from Laura Kelleher. I don't know, Laura, if you have another comment that you'd like to share?
Thanks, Jody. I just wanted to understand what the process is for parents who have raised concerns today, like when we can expect the board to deliberate on this and give us a response for the concerns that have been raised tonight.
So, well, the board not deliberate without it being on the agenda for us to deliberate. And that is more of a superintendent, how the school is run kind of question. But we take all of the thoughts and comments to heart. There were, in addition to the people that were in the room that were speaking, there was clearly support for those that spoke. And that is all taken into consideration as we move forward with decisions.
And Mrs. Keller, this is Jonathan Hart. I just want to let you know, and I think I mentioned in my presentation, just to clarify that, if sports and extracurricular activities is of concern to parents, I reported out to the board tonight, the fact that because things are looking so good in terms of attendance and quarantine, that we're looking to reinstate those things. So I think that if that's part of the concern, I want to let you know and reassure you that those are things that we heard the concerns and comments tonight, but even before tonight, because of the way the numbers are looking, those are things that we're looking to reinstate as well, in the coming week. As of right now, I mean, in hopes that we can have our students finish the winter season, right? They can do their final week of games and then they can do playoffs if we make the playoffs. So that's one thing that I can tell you, we've taken under advisement and we're putting plans in place for that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I don't want to limit it to sports. I mean, I know I spoke to that specifically, but there are concerns that everyone else has addressed. And I think from the parenting community would love to understand how we're going to just move forward. So I appreciate all you all are doing. I know this is not easy for any of you. And thank you very much. We all look forward to a lot of communication at this point, I think is really what we're trying to tell you. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments? There was none in the chat, right?
No, they're not in.
All right, so moving on
Are we
to.
allowed to say anything?
Oh, yeah.
All right, I just wanted to say, for the record, honestly, that I appreciate all the efforts that Dr. Hart has made from day one. I totally understand the frustration of people showing up at the meetings, and we share in that frustration. There's no question about it. But we have to remember that this started back in March of 2020, and the things that have been put in place, the mitigation factors that have been put in place, have been commendable. And I for one appreciate all your efforts, Dr. Hart. I really do. And the district as a whole. But it's ongoing, and we do have to constantly look at the newest, situation, which we're doing. So I thank everyone for, your comments, and they are not falling on deaf ears. We understand your concerns, and we thank you for that. So, but most importantly, I just wanted to be stated that, this district is led by someone very competent, who, just is always looking out, because the primary responsibility by far for any school administrator is the safety and security of the children and the staff. And Dr. Hart has put that as a primary concern, and I, for one, am very appreciative of that. I just wanted to say that.
Thank you. If nothing else then, moving on to executive session, can I get a motion to adjourn to executive session in accordance with the Sunshine Law to discuss the superintendent evaluation mid-year update for approximately 20 minutes, at which time the board expects to return to public session where no action will be taken. The matters discussed will be made public if and when the circumstances requiring confidentiality no longer exist. However, it is not presently known when such circumstances will exist. Can I get the motion? So move, Beth.
Second, Carolyn.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Betterman.
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore.
Yes.
Mr. Beach.
Yes.
Mrs. Bygorski.
Yes.
Mr. Wallace.
Yes.
Mrs. Wolf.
Yes.
Dr. Sosiello.
Yes.
Mrs. Sample.
Yes. 9:50. Eric, thank you so much for coming out, and congratulations.
Thank you all so much, and unfortunately, on the 8th, I will be traveling between out-of-state courses teaching, so no disrespect, but I will be attending virtually from my
Thank-
hotel in summer.
Thank you very much, Eric. Safe travels.
I look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Someone wants to join me?
No, I mean, you can admit order.
Oh, I can stand up again.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
He's over.
This is even as long as they can go.
I do need to put on.
Yeah,
executive, so once you're ready,